Welcome to Midnight Story, a podcast that dives into the invisible world, urban legends, and true stories that leave a trail of fear. Tonight, we're going to enter an area you've probably passed by, but never really paid attention to. An old cemetery in the middle of Jakarta, a place where many souls are buried, and one of them never really left. This is the story of the priest of Jeruk Purut, a legend of the night that whispered prayers in Latin, and heavy footsteps that walked without direction. TPU Jeruk Purut, or Jeruk Purut Public Cemetery, was initiated in the Dutch colonial era around the 19th century. In those days, the area was just a vast sweet orange plantation, with old trees shading the red dirt roads. The name Jeruk Purut is said to come from a type of tart orange that grows in the area. In the 1880s, the Dutch started building cemeteries for European residents who died in Batavia. Several Catholic priests and missionaries were buried here. Rumor has it that the administrative records of the cemetery are not always complete. Some graves have no definite identity. Until the 1940s, Jeruk Purut was increasingly known as a public cemetery. When the Japanese occupied Indonesia, this place was the site of secret executions and body dumping. After Indonesia's independence, the land was expanded. Some of the Dutch tombstones were moved or damaged. This is where the legend began to grow. It is said that there was a foreign priest whose grave moved, his soul never at rest. Stories of headless priest sightings began to be heard in the 1980s. The first witness was reportedly a cemetery caretaker named Pak Samo. One night, he combed the cemetery aisles to extinguish the lights left over from the afternoon funeral ceremony. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. Among the old gravestones, he saw a figure in a long white robe, tall and well-built. But strangely, there was no head above the shoulders. The figure was walking slowly, his hand grasping something, supposedly his own head. Mr. Samo ran away and collapsed near the gate. Word spread quickly. Overnight, the story of the headless priest became legend. Several other witnesses claimed to have seen the same figure, walking among the frangipani trees. Others heard the sound of prayers in Latin, followed by the pungent smell of incense. Of the many witness accounts, the following characteristics often emerge. Long white robes, similar to Catholic mass robes. Large tall figure, pale skin. No head, but sometimes carries his head in his right hand. Approaches an odd number of pilgrims. Often appears on the night of Friday Kliwon. Sometimes there is the sound of heavy steps on gravelly ground. The smell of incense or frangipani flowers suddenly appears without cause. Those who see it usually feel a piercing chill, their heart beats fast, and their vision seems blurry. Some people say they witnessed it firsthand and passed the story down from one person to another, such as the story of a horror movie production team in 1997. In the late 90s, a group of young filmmakers made a funeral-themed indie horror movie. They filmed in Jeruk Purut at 2 in the morning. As filming progressed, the cameraman saw on the monitor a figure in a white robe staring at the camera without a head. In fact, there was only a crew at the location. The footage showed a faint silhouette and an echoing sound like a Latin prayer. After the incident, 2 of the crew were sick with high fever for weeks. Furthermore, from the student experience in 2004, there were 3 students did a guts test on Friday Kliwon night. They sat by a large tree near the gate. Suddenly they heard heavy footsteps, and a pungent odor pierced their noses. They turned their heads in the direction of the sound, clearly seen a tall white figure passing by without a head. Instantly, their camera lights went out, and one of the students vomited and fell unconscious. And there is a story from the confession of a gravedigger in 2012. Mr. Mamet, a senior gravedigger, claimed to have seen the priest twice. One night, he was digging a grave for the next morning. Suddenly the lanterns dimmed, and from a distance, the figure walked closer. He knelt down, read a prayer, and dared not look. When he looked back, the figure had vanished, leaving footprints in the wet soil. From some of these stories, people believe that the priest is wandering because his grave was moved without proper rituals. He died on a mission. His spirit was not at rest. His spirit is bound to a missing headstone. Another myth says, if you want to see the priest, come in odd numbers, because his spirit is attracted to imbalance. Some psychics believe that the apparition is not just a wandering soul, but a residue of spiritual energy recorded at the site. A number of historical researchers have attempted to trace the priest's original grave. Dutch archives show several names of priests buried in this area, but the records are incomplete. Tombstones are missing or destroyed. Until now, there is no certainty who the priest really was. Some psychics have performed communication rituals. They felt an overwhelming cold energy. The smell of incense appeared suddenly. One of the mediums fell into a trance and said a Latin prayer. The entity seemed to be looking for a way home. The night is getting late. Jeruk Purut still stands as a silent witness to hundreds of years of history and mystery. Perhaps one day, as you walk down the lonely gravestone hallway, you will hear heavy footsteps, smell incense, and see a white-robed, headless figure slowly approaching. Is it a shadow or a warning? Urban legends are sometimes born out of trauma, history, and collective fear. But one thing is certain, the story of the headless priest in Jeruk Purut will live on, as long as there are those who believe.